Hi everybody, it's Susan from Sunrise Quilt Studio, and today we're going to work on the second block in the Honeymoon Star Quilt. And this is called the Honeymoon block, and it is a star block. And you can see we've got half square triangles and quarter square triangles in here. So it is a more complex block, and I would call this like an intermediate. But I think it's not too difficult. I'm using a variety of fabrics in here, and I do have the link to the pattern in the description box below, so you can get that there. And you don't have to use as many different fabrics in it if you don't want to, so you can simplify this a little bit, but I'm trying to use more of the fabric I have left over from the Love Note line from Lella Boutique. And so this is my third quilt using that fat quarter bundle. So I'm going to adjust the camera and I'm going to show you the pieces that you need to make the honeymoon block. Okay, now here we have all the pieces laid out, and there's quite a few here, and there's a couple of things I needed to tell you. First off, I have all the fabrics cut for the entire quilt. So this is for 8 blocks, so this may throw you a little bit, but don't let that worry you. This is for all 8 blocks, and there's different colors, different fabrics in each set, and that's just the way I colored this quilt. So you can make them all scrappy like I'm doing, or you can just pick one set of fabrics and use them through every single block in your quilt. For the 8 pieces, this is what's going to be in the center, and let me show you. Okay, let me show you the block we did last week. This is the Pennsylvania block, and when I did the tutorial, I had this fabric actually in the center. But I basically just picked up the wrong set of fabrics, as I had all these cut out already. I wanted the green in here, so I had to rip the block apart and put the green in. So that's where that came from. There's not going to be that fabric in both quilts. Okay, so for A, you're going to need 1 4.5 inch square. For B, you'll need 4 2.5 inch squares. C would be 2 5.5 inch squares. D, 4 3 inch squares. E, you will need 1 5.5 inch square. F, you'll need 4 3 inch squares. G is 4 2.5 inch squares. And H, you'll need 1 5.5 inch square. And I want to show you something with these 3 fabrics here. So I'm going to move these out of the way. These are the ones that you're going to make the quarter square triangle out of. So these here. Now if you were just using 2 fabrics like this one and this one, and eliminate this one, you would need 2 of each one of these. But since I am putting a different fabric in here, I need that fabric plus 1 of the background. So that's what's going to be different on this. Also, these fabrics you're going to need to cut on the diagonal both directions, so from corner to corner both ways, so that you get these triangles. And you'll have a set from each one of these, and then we're going to put those together to make the quarter square triangle. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is to cut my C fabrics. I'm going to grab 2 C's. I already have my E cut, and I'm going to grab 1 H, and then we'll be ready to cut these. So I'm going to get my ruler, and I'm going to get my rotating mat, and I'm going to cut these separately. And I'm just going to cut on the diagonal both directions. And if you don't have a rotating mat, if you have a small mat that you can just rotate by hand, that will work. Otherwise you can walk around your table, or if you can like cut towards you or this way, whatever. I can't do that very well. I'm not very good at that. So I like to turn my mat or use my rotating mat. Okay, so those pieces are ready. I'll stack those up. These two I'm going to cut together. Because you're going to need 8 triangles to make the 4 units, the 4 quarter square units. Okay, so we're done there. And then I'm just going to stack these all together. Okay, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to make the corner units, which are these 4-patch units right here. So I'm going to make the half square triangles that go here and here. So that is the D and the F squares. And on my F squares, I have drawn a diagonal line, and I'm going to use that as a guideline for my sewing. So I'm going to put the D's and the F's together, right sides together, and then I'm going to stitch a 1/4 inch away from that drawn line on both sides. Next thing I need to do is to cut these apart right on that drawn line. Okay, so here's all the half square triangles, and I'm going to trim these down, and they need to measure 2.5 inches. So I'm going to line up my 45-degree line with the seam, and the 2.5 inch mark goes on each edge here, and then I'm going to trim the excess. And there won't be a whole lot, but there'll be a little bit. There's just a tiny bit there, and I'm going to turn that and then trim the other side. Okay, and there is my 2.5 inch half square triangle. So I'm going to do that for all of them, and then we'll move on to the next step. Okay, so now I can put the 4-patch units together. So we're going to start by laying out all of the pieces, and what I'm looking for is see what direction these hearts go in. Now these pieces are going to go opposite each other like this, and since this is a directional fabric, I'm going to have 4 that go in one direction and 4 that go in another. So like that. So I'm going to lay those all together, And I'm just going to stack them all up for each corner, and then I need my G square will go outside and my B square will go inside. And this is also a directional print, so I'm going to have all of these hearts going up. These are going to go one direction, and then I'm going to rotate them around. So what I'm going to do is lay out each quarter square unit. That one will go here, so we're going to have 4 of them. Okay, and then this one's going to start over here. Actually, I've got 2 of those here, don't we? Okay, and then these will go this way. This one will go here. And then this one. I don't know if that makes any difference. This way they'd be kind of upside down. They're going to be upside down no matter what I do. I think. Unless I go this way. Okay. So now I have, since I have a directional fabric, it makes it a little bit difficult. I just have to decide. I've got 2 of them that will work out so that they're all facing one direction. They're all facing up. These 2 are going to be sideways. I just need to decide which way I want those to go. It's really not a big deal. It's a small print, but you know, you can do it however you want. So I just need to sew these together into 4 patch units, and then we'll move on to the quarter square triangles. Here is the 4 patch units. Okay, now I have the pieces laid out to make the quarter square triangle. Now these are real easy to get mixed up when you're sewing them. What we're going to do is to sew these 2 pieces together and these 2. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pin these, because we have bias seams. All of these are bias seams, and if I have to rip them out, there's a good chance that I will stretch them out of shape. So I'm going to put them together and place a pin. So it tells me I need to stitch that seam there and put these 2 together and place a pin, and then I'm going to sew this seam. Okay, so I have my 2 halves. I'm going to put them together. I've got them pressed towards my green fabric on both of these pieces. So now we're going to sew this seam here. So I want to nest my seam right there. I'm going to go ahead and pin that. So I'm still working with bias edges here. And then I'm going to sew right down here. Okay, so there is our quarter square triangle. Now this needs to be trimmed, so it's going to be a little bit big. So we're going to go back to the cutting board and I'm going to trim this up. Okay, this needs to measure 4.5 inches square. And right now it measures almost 4 3/4. So I'm going to take about 1/8 off of each side. I'm going to keep this line here going along that seam, and I'll try and take the same amount off of each side. Okay, get those out of the way, flip it around. And now I want this to measure 4.5. Keep this along the seam. Here we go. And now we have, that didn't trim very well. Okay. Now I have my quarter square triangle. So need to make 4 of these for the block. Okay, so now everything's ready to be sewn together. I got all the units done. So I started out with my center square, my A square, and then added my quarter square triangles surrounding it, and then my corner units, which are these 4 patch units. And I'm paying a little bit of attention to the direction in some of these fabrics. Like this fabric here has a direction. It's a text print. These 3 pieces are facing up. This one is facing down. There's nothing I can do about that one. With these, I decided to focus on these pieces. Those are all facing the same direction. And these hearts, these 2 are facing sideways. These 2 are facing up. So that's about the best I can do with directional fabric in this block. This is a block that would be easier to put together if you did not have any fabrics that had a direction to that. So you might want to keep that in mind. But as you can see, it does work with directional fabric. You just have to work at it a little bit more and not worry too much about pieces like this. Now you can cut them so that they will work that way, but for me, that's a little bit more work than what I wanted to do. So I'm not going to worry about it. And so now I'm ready to sew this together in the 9 patch fashion, which means I'm going to sew everything into rows, and then I'm going to sew all the rows together, and then the block will be done. Okay, so here is the completed honeymoon block. I think it's a pretty star block. It's going to take you a little bit of time because there's different techniques in here. They're really not too difficult, but I would call this like an intermediate block because of the quarter square triangles and the number of pieces. If you're going to use a different fabric here instead of using the same one here, it makes it a little more complicated, but it's still doable. So I hope you will give this block a try. Okay, so the honeymoon block, I think it turned out pretty well. I've got 6 more to go, and then I'll be ready to put the top together. So I'll show you that in the next video, and that will go along with the Pennsylvania block, which is this chain block here. So that'll make a pretty top, and it will have 2 borders on it, which is not my favorite part of quilting, is putting on borders, but I think it finishes off the quilt really well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll have another project to work on from there. So if you like this video, please click that like button. Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already, and click that notification bell so you'll be notified when the next video comes up. And in the meantime, I hope you're all staying safe and healthy, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. For more quilting ideas, click on the video links. And to keep up with my latest projects, click on the subscribe button. I hope to see you again soon.